Welcome, Agile friends. My name is Vasco, and I'm here with our guest speaker for this keynote, Andrea Goulet. Hey, Andrea, welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to chat about empathy-driven development and Agile and how we move forward and what all the next things are going to be.
Absolutely. And empathy-driven development is indeed the topic we're going to share today. Andrea is a technology leader, author, keynote speaker, also the founder of a podcast you must check out, Empathy in Tech, and also the author of the upcoming book and the topic of today's session, Empathy-Driven Software Development. Now, we'll talk with Andrea in a second, but first, let me tell you about another session we have here on the summit. There is a keynote with Pete Oliver Kruger and Michael Doherty, where they talk about a very similar topic, people-centric software development. Their book, Shift from Product to People, just came out. So if you want to check that out, you can find that and all the other sessions at agileonlinesummit.com. But now let's dive into empathy-driven software development with Andrea. Andrea, before we dive into the specifics of what that empathy-driven software development is all about and why it's important, I'm curious, what inspired you to really start from that perspective, the perspective of empathy as a core element for software development?
Yeah, I think some of it is that I have a non-traditional background in how I came to software. I started as a person who learned a lot about strategic communications. I had a degree in marketing. That's what I studied. I started my own consultancy when I was 24. And after looking at the ways that we do sales and kind of using a lot of process to achieve that right balance between automation and personalization and really solving problems for people. And when I went to my high school reunion in 2009, I connected with a good friend of mine. His name is Scott Ford. He wanted to modernize legacy code using Agile methodologies. And I was like, okay. And he said, I know you. And I know your work because I had been blogging about kind of my ideas about communication. He goes, I want you to be my CEO. I was like, what? I don't know anything about software. I don't code. He goes, no, you might not think you are a programmer, but you sure do think like a programmer. And having had such a deep background in empathy, because you can't do strategic communications, which is communication that drives an outcome. You can't do that unless you understand empathy on a technical level. And because I had been doing so much consulting, I had seen this approach work across industries with all of my clients. So my one must have was that empathy had to be at the core of everything. And if I could lead in that way, I thought we could be successful. But if that was something he wasn't interested, then it wouldn't work. So he was, and it worked. And we built a great company, Corgi Bytes. We just exited. And through that process, I was able to see, as I learned more about Agile, as I learned about test-driven development and behavior-driven development, it just made sense that empathy is at the core of all of the Agile practices. I think of it kind of like soil, where when you think of a garden, you think of the flowers. You don't necessarily talk about the microbes in the dirt, but that you can't get the flowers, you can't get the results unless you have a good foundation. And to me, empathy was very clearly the thing that was so obvious, but not clearly defined. Because when we talk about people, when we talk about all of this stuff, what we are talking about is empathy. So if we understand it on a technical level and we can dig down in the dirt and we can really know what we're working with, that's how we drive better outcomes. And that's what we've seen across complex software systems over the course of 15 years. Yeah, in the past 4 or 5 years, I've been diving really deeply into this to try to figure out how do, test-driven development is like red, green refactor. How can we create a framework to reduce the cognitive load that is required with all of the different decisions that we have to make when we're writing software?
Yeah. Well, so just this intro, there's so many threads we could follow. Okay. So first one is, all right, when you say that you realize that empathy was the core at all of the Agile practices. Like, this is a huge insight that I think is definitely worth highlighting. Give us a little bit of that, the backstory. Why did you